I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 5th, brought to you in part by Legacy Beef Cooperative. Protect your assets by putting a $25 deposit down to insulate yourself from black swans. For less than the cost of a hedge per head, your share gets you a kill slot based on box beef cutout values when you sell. Also, Legacy Beef Cooperative will own a 20% share of Cattleman's Heritage Beef Plant being constructed there near Council Bluffs, Iowa. Check out the video that I put on here several times, but take the time to look at that video and learn more about Legacy Beef Cooperative. And for more information, go to legacybeefcoop.com. Are you tired of getting pushed around? I would say your typical cattleman is getting tired of being pushed around. I'm talking about cattle producers, which are largely small producers, tired of getting pushed around. Seems like everything just gets shoved down our throat. And a couple, 3 years ago here, we were wanting to get a referendum on the beef checkoff. Oh no, the big establishment, beef and cattle, they took that away. So no referendum on the beef checkoff. We wanted Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. No, we didn't get that at all. And now they're coming at us with this mandatory EID tag, which is set to start in early November. Initially, they're saying that they just want all intact bulls, heifers, and cows over 18 months of age to be given an ear tag that is electronically ID'd. So, but we know, and I'll grant you, that's not that big of an ask. A lot of people can do that. Now, there's some out west there that rarely see all of their cows and breeding stock out there, let alone get their hands on them. But that's not that big of an ask if that's as far as it went. But we know that the USDA's APHIS plan is calling for birth to slaughter EIDs. And that is not feasible to have all classes of cattle EID tagged. But it's getting crammed down our throat. NCBA and their affiliates are pushing this extremely hard. And it seems to me last February we actually stopped NCBA from passing that as policy that they want this, but they're still pushing it. And both RCAF and U.S. Cattlemen's Association are against it. But why isn't there more people coming out against it? I talk to a lot of market owners, sale barn owners, and I talk to a lot of producers. I don't know anybody that's in favor of this mandatory EID tagging. Yet very few are coming out against it. Now, one that is coming out against it and put out a video here middle of this week, which he hasn't been putting out as many videos of late, but he is the spokesman for the cattle industry, and it's John Campbell from Winter Livestock, good friend of mine, level-headed, smart guy. And I encourage you to go on YouTube and check out John Campbell's video talking about the mandatory EID. He gives a really good explanation of it and why we should all be against it. So, but you don't see that many people against it. Why are they not coming out against it if nobody wants it except for establishment beef and cattle? Because they don't think they can win. Because we never win. That's how elections get lost, guys. If you don't think you can win, you just give up, lay down, and let them give it to you. That's how elections are lost. It's why we see the polls coming out saying that Kamala Harris is slightly ahead of Trump. People say, well, might as well not vote or go ahead and throw in with the winner because we want to be with the winner. I travel around a lot. I never see any yard signs for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Never. If I do, it's like 1,000 Trump signs to one, maybe. Or maybe a bumper sticker on a Subaru or an electric car that's sitting at an odd charging station there for their hour-and-a-half fill-up. Maybe. But for the most part, everywhere you go, everybody's for Trump. Yet we're not sure if we can win this election or not. Kind of like this mandatory EID. Where are the livestock marketing groups. Why aren't they out? Well, they likely don't want to get in a pissing match with NCBA. And you think, are they really that dirty? Oh my God. And all their affiliates are hauling water for them, because you're affiliates of NCBA. What do? Do they provide a service? Do they make anything? No. They are just hauling water for NCBA. And do they get nasty? Well, Texas Cattle Feeders Association disagreed with me coming out and giving producers information about mandatory EID. They tried to shut down all of my sponsors, or get them to stop doing business with us, which all of them but one said, screw you, we like the feeder flash, we like the information that he puts out. They went as far as went to my alma mater, West Texas A&M University, where I graduated and got 2 degrees from, and my youngest daughter just started school there in the ag department. And they convinced the Ag Alumni Association to not allow me to volunteer my time to auctioneer at their WT Ag Day, because they told them, well, if he's going to participate in that, we're not going to participate, and we're not going to donate any money or buy anything at the auction and things like that. What money are they using to buy the stuff with? Membership dues and dollar head checkoff? That they don't have any money of their own. It's your money. And you say, well, I'm not a member of that group. If you feed cattle in a member feed yard in the Southern Plains, you are a member of that group. They get their money before you get yours. And so, and then all the other affiliates that are strongly pulling the weight for NCBA on this mandatory EID, they're all doing the same thing. They're threatening, and they're supposed to be working for you producers. But, like I said, it's not that big a deal that we have to do all intact bulls, heifers, and cows over 18 months of age. But we know that soon after that, going to be another directive come down from the Secretary of Agriculture saying, well, now we're going to do it in all classes, and they're doing it under the umbrella of disease traceability. It's not doing a damn thing more for disease traceability than what we're already doing. At best, it might make it where some of the tags are a little bit easier to read, but they're going to be easier for everybody to read. Somebody with a drone could come in there and scan your cattle when you've got them turned out and they're nowhere around. Who's using that information? Why do we need that information? Why does the government need to know so much about your cattle operation? Well, let's see where it's happened some other places. Well, they've done it over in Europe, several places, made it mandatory for EID tags. In Denmark, they started sending out bills $100 per head for a tax, a carbon tax there. In Ireland, they did it, and a year later, they came in there with a directive and said that we need to destroy over 40,000 head of cattle because they're ruining the globe with their burps and farts. Do we need to let them have that much information? And then, who's going to do the work? The little guys. The cattle producers are going to have to do the work. The feedlots, all of them will be done by the time they get to them, or they'll use that as a bargaining tool to keep cattle from going into auction markets. They'll say, oh, we'll take care of that tagging for you when we get them to the feedlot. Don't worry about that. So it's going to limit your marketing. And if we have to do all classes, which we're going to have to do all classes, then they say, oh, no big deal. You guys can just have the sale barn do it and pay a small fee for that. The sale barns don't want to do it. It's not feasible. When's the last time you went to a sale barn and there's just lots of available help standing around looking for something to do? They don't have time, they don't have the facilities, they don't have the room, and they don't have the want to do it. All this stuff that they push through, the onus is on the markets to do that. They have to collect your dollar a head checkoff. And then they get in trouble if they don't do it correctly, and then they just take in all the money. I tell you what, this deal stinks to high heaven. You think, well, how can we fight it? We've only got a couple of months here. How can we fight it? Well, Harriet Hageman of Wyoming has put out a fight. and she needs people to get in behind her. And you need to get in with your grassroots groups and get in behind her. And I ask you to do this, and I know people don't feel comfortable doing it, but you've got to get in touch with your representatives, both state and federal, especially federal, but you've got to get in touch with them. Tell them that this is not a feasible thing. You know, and you think, well, I think there must be some people out there for it. I don't know any sale barns that are for it. You know, John Campbell runs a sale barn there in Colorado. He's against it. I know a load of them in South Dakota, in Nebraska, in Missouri, in Oklahoma, everywhere. None of the sale barns are for it. And who works more closely with the small producers than our sale barns all across the country? Because they know that they're going to be the ones expected to put all those tags in. And I tell you what, guys, they're just pushing you around, pushing you around. It's pushing more older small producers out of the business. It's just continuously working towards the big corporates taking over everything. What happens when a small producer comes out? Somebody that rents their land or takes it, that's hooked in with a corporate, either a corporate feeder, and then all the corporate feeders are hooked in with the corporate packers. They're the ones that stand to gain. Now there's a few outfits that have been putting in EID tags for record keeping, especially if they're a purebred outfit. They're doing that for a premium, and that's great. I'm glad that they're doing it, and I hope it works out well for them. Where's the premium going to be when everybody does it? That's going to go away, guys. But I tell you what, you got to get in, check out John Campbell's video about this. I felt like I'm the only one speaking out against it, but I'm not. And I hope that more and more influential people in the cattle business will come out for this, show you what it is, show you where it's headed. And we just, you know, why do they need all that information? I have no idea why they need that information. But, and it don't let them tell you that it's about disease traceability. It's a solution for a problem that we don't even have, and it's not a good solution, guys. Your cash feeders, middle of the week, were on fire. We saw some real premium sales. You know, this week was kind of slow to develop. Early week, high volume Monday sales were closed for Labor Day, so we didn't really get a good test there. And then everybody was gone over Labor Day weekend, spending it with their family and friends and things like that. We get to Wednesday when they started getting some big runs in there and some really nice consignments, and it drove this cash feeder market. It didn't pay no attention to it all to your feeder cattle board, which was down fairly hard on Wednesday. But man, I mean, the cash feeders, and of course I'm going to give that to you at the end of this report. You're going to be amazed at what some of these cattle are bringing, especially the big green grass yearlings. We're running out of them, guys, and when you see them, if you want them, you better get them. And the market is being driven by cheap feed and harvest as we start coming in there, because a lot of these farmer feeders in the Midwest and the Northern Plains, they still got last year's crop sitting in there on farm storage there. So something's got to give. A lot of them are going to market it through some cattle, and you're really seeing them push that market in the sale barns, in the markets where farmer feeders typically go in to buy their cattle. So I'm going to give you a lot of those in a little bit. Your packers, last week they had the blackest margins that they've had all year up to now. Last week, and you know, they've done it by pushing your fat cattle market down, and box beef cutout values have been fairly well supportive, and that's one reason I'm touting the Legacy Beef Co-op, because they're wanting to buy those cattle, pay the producers off of box beef cutout values, and kind of insulate you from the big board drops, guys. But let's talk about your board on Wednesday. October live cattle futures were down a nickel at 179.22. December was up a nickel at 178.90. Your back months were mixed, from down 82 cents on your farthest out traded month to as much as 45 cents higher. So not a big movement day for your live cattle futures, but feeder cattle down hard, and some of it could be blamed on a little bit of a rally here on your cheap corn prices. But September feeder cattle closed down 175 on Wednesday at 239.62. October down $1.87 at 237.45. And your back months were all down as little as 47 cents on your farthest out traded month to as much as down 145, a lot closer up to now. December corn up 3.5 cents a bushel at 4.12 3/4. November beans up 9.5 cents a bushel at 10.21 1/2. Hard red winter wheat for December up 16 3/4 cents at 5.93. Your fat cattle trade, and we basically haven't seen any direct trade so far this week, with Monday being a holiday, and then just not wanting to give up any more market position. We haven't seen hardly anything. Didn't see anything trade on Wednesday out of Iowa, Nebraska, or Texas, but somebody in Kansas sold 1,300 head at 180. That would be $3 lower than last week. I hope that does not set the market for your Southern Plains trade. I feel like it won't. I wouldn't think a whole lot more would be selling that. Why would they be selling at 180 when the market is 183 and doing it on a Wednesday early? We had some fat cattle auctions up in the Northern Plains. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota had 1,100 head of slaughter cattle, including cows and bulls. Conventional fat cattle in Worthing, South Dakota sold from 179 to 184, which was $2 to $3 lower than last week. But we do have some regional packers looking for some program cattle, and the program drug-free cattle at Sioux Falls Regional sold $4 to $5 higher than a week ago, from 183 to 189.50. Now another fat cattle auction just up the road at Glacial Lakes Livestock in Watertown, South Dakota. They had 550 head of slaughter cattle there. Conventional fats there, and the few premiums that they had sold about steady, but the conventional cattle sell from 180 to 185. Non-implanted cattle from 185 to 188, and some fat Holstein steers from 164 to 171. Box beef cutout values were mixed, but pretty good gain on the choice. It was up 93 cents at 311.60. Selects were down 72 cents at 299.39. Your slaughter, of course, running behind a year ago. We can't really test it with last week because we had a holiday on Monday, but 252,000 up through the first 3 days of the week with no kill on Monday. That was 7,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Charlet, pounds matter and pay weight counts, guys. That's why producers are turning to Charlet bulls to add efficiency, weaning weight, performance, and profitability when it counts the most at weaning time. For more information, go to charletusa.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction, based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states, was $1.28 higher after Wednesday's trade, and some really significantly higher markets traded on Wednesday all around, guys. But RTI late on Wednesday sitting at 244.16. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index 239.53, dragging way behind because of some much cheaper direct sales that were turned in over the weekend. Don't forget on Friday, St. Onge Livestock, my buddy Justin Tupper there, he's got a good sale on Friday. Been kind of quiet here over the summer, but he's looking for about 3,500 yearlings for his feeder sale on Friday. Plus, they're going to have a rollover auction to help the fire victims, mostly in Wyoming there, where they've lost over 400,000 acres. So don't forget that. You can get on it at DVAuction.com. St. Onge Livestock in St. Onge, South Dakota. Let's talk about your big sales on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma had 6,100 head for their 2-day sale. Mostly all feeders on Wednesday, or that is their feeder sale on Wednesday. Didn't have a lot of calves on Tuesday, but the feeders on Wednesday sold steady to $2 higher, $2 lower than the sharply higher market that they had a week ago. The calves on Tuesday and a light test were mostly steady. Your NationalBeefWire stick-out sale of the day. Check this. North Arkansas Livestock in beautiful downtown Green Forest, Arkansas. They had their anniversary special there, had 3,200 head of feeder cattle through the ring there in Green Forest, Arkansas. Not many times you're going to see an Arkansas market be the National Beef Wire stick out sale of the day, but check out so many of these well-tested weight groups on this automated market report. They had 379 steers in the 5-weight group, averaged 549 pounds, with a weighted average price of $283.36. 399 head of 6-weight steers, averaged 642 at $261.46. There were 386 head of 7-weight steers. They averaged 762 pounds, weighted average price of $248.07. And there's going to be a lot of small groups and single heads in those cattle. That was a weighted average on all of them in there. Now look at that, some big cattle in there too. 328 head of 8-weight steers in Green Forest, Arkansas, averaged 824 with a weighted average price of $244.13. Few groups of heifers that were well tested. 224 head of 4-weight heifer calves, and there would be some small lots in there, and there'd be some heifers you probably wouldn't be too proud of. But look at the price, with a weighted average weight of 460 pounds and a weighted average price of $269.12. There were 367 head of 5-weight heifers, averaged 540 pounds at $254.40, and 296 head of 6-weight heifers, averaged 641 at $241.45. Look at some other markets from all around. Hub City Livestock in Aberdeen, South Dakota. I haven't talked about them all that much. They've been a DVAuction broadcaster for a long, long time. We're proud to have them, but they didn't have the clerking system that would allow us to pull their information as easy as we'd like to, but they do have it now. Look at these loads, over 1,000-pound steers there in Hub City in Aberdeen, South Dakota. The average, the prices on them ranged on these loads from $224.50 to $238, and not listed here, they had 2 loads of the Waltman steers. They averaged 1016 and brought 241. Wow. How about another market that had a really impressive sale was Bloomfield, Iowa. Bloomfield Livestock Market there. Their best quote that I saw out of there was 69 steers, weighed 804 pounds, and bring 261 right there. Good job of the Schooley family there at Bloomfield. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, come out of Bassett Livestock Auction, who recently added DVAuction broadcasting there. They do such a great job on a premium sale there in the Sand Hills of Nebraska. They sell 170 steers, weighed 906, and bring 250. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday. I'm Corbett Wall with this feeder flash feature. I'm here with Chad Tinniger from Legacy Beef Co-op and Cattlemen's Heritage. And we're going to give you some information about getting in on the ground floor of a co-op that's going to own part of Cattlemen's Heritage, a new privately owned packing plant. Hopefully we'll give you an opportunity to stay profitable and stay in the cattle feeding business and compete with the big 4 packers. How you doing today, Chad?
Good, Corbett. Glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about this new and exciting venture that you've got going?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we started out, Legacy Co-op is a outshoot of Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Company, the new processing plant outside of Council Bluffs. That'll be 525,000 head a year. We'll be processing right outside of Council Bluffs off of the I-29 corridor over there. We got about 132 acres. We've cleared the land. We're ready to break ground next spring. And Legacy Co-op will be the supply of the cattle that will feed that plant with the producer involvement.
Okay, so all the cattle that come into that plant will be through Legacy Co-op.
That is the goal, yes. We want to make sure that the producer has a say in how the plants run, the say in how the market works. All these things that we as producers, when I put my producer cap on, I want to get the best value for my cattle. Well, I don't think there's any way I can ever get the best value for my cattle if I don't participate in the processing end of it, because obviously in the last decade we've seen very clearly that the only way we're ever going to get what we think we deserve is to actually participate in the ownership.
Okay, so you say these co-op members are going to have a say in what goes on at the plant. How's that going to work?
So how we've set up the co-op is it's buying shares. One share is one delivery obligation a year. So there's 525,000 shares up for sale. Once you deliver your cattle, what you're going to gain in the beginning is you're going to get access to a grid. Everybody knows how grid works, premiums and discounts. But our grid's going to be tied to the box beef cutout. We are not going to tie it to the CME. We fundamentally believe that the CME does not represent the cattle fundamentals in the country on a day-to-day basis. I think we could all agree to that. There's no traders in the pits anymore. There's no human contact. It's computer algorithms trading on headlines, and we're at the mercy of it. So beginning, the fundamental belief is let's tie it to the box beef cutout. At least then we know we got a fair shake. You also, if you're a member of the co-op, you get a $25 bonus every time you deliver. So automatically it's $25 more than you would have got anywhere else. And then at the end of the day, for buying into the co-op, that co-op is going to have roughly, give or take, 20% ownership in Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Company. So true ownership in the plant, in the company, in the brand, whatever we can create out of this, you have ownership in and get a margin in those profits.
So these unit shares, you assume they're going to gain in value as time goes on.
Every other company that we've looked at like this, in the pork industry, there's more of these companies with producer involvement. All those shares just increase in value. You can sell them, you can, your kids can inherit them, pass it down, but ultimately you have a say in how the system works that you're participating in.
So you're offering producers an opportunity to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah, I've been in this business my whole life, and we as producers, my whole life we've been saying, we don't have any say in how we sell our product, what comes from it, we're at the mercy of everybody. This is an opportunity to be in the ground floor at the cheapest you're going to get in, to actually take ownership in a company that you'll participate in. We've set it up. The Cattlemen's Heritage will have its own board. The co-op will have its own board. They will work together hand in hand in an advisory board. Each board will have 2 members of the other. So we have true ownership in the game. So when we talk about how are we going to sell cattle or how's the grid going to work exactly, you're going to have a seat at the table with us deciding those very things.
So the plan itself, you're expecting to pretty much run on a consistent margin then, and then the extra money is going to be premiums for the producer?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple system. You tie a grid to a set point. We're going to tie it to the box beef cutout. Then you have to plant production. You can't break the plant, right? It costs X amount to run. You minus that out, and then you start on quality of cattle. You're still going to be paid for quality cattle on a premium discount basis. That would be very similar to how grid works today. One thing we are looking at pretty closely that we might change, especially when you get discounts on 4s and 5s. Right. In today's world, in reality, there's not really much of a discount on a 4. And what's coming up that a lot of people probably don't realize, but 45Z, it's a huge tax credit that's coming on the tax code for anything biofuels. That's what all the ethanol industry is doing. That's what they're talking about. That's why they're paying you. Well, our fats and tallows in the cattle are worth gold right now going to the biodiesel. And we're not getting a part of that. And there's going to be yet another revenue stream that we won't see. So, when you start adding up all the value adds that we as producers do, that we don't participate in, at a certain point in time, all of us producers are just saying, I'm doing the most I will do to create value that I don't get to participate in.
So we talked about the cattle. What kind of cattle are you looking for?
We're just really looking for northern western genetics, right? That's going to be the kind of cattle we feed where we are. If you put a pin in Council Bluffs, that's where the plant will be. You go 300 miles in any direction, that's a lot of high quality cattle. And so we're not going to limit it to just black hided or anything like that. It'll be just all quality cattle because the system's still set up. You deliver quality, you'll make more money.
Okay, so no particular program. Yeah. It's just where you're at on the globe, that's the kind of cattle you want.
That's exactly right.
Type cattle.
Yeah, and the system will work that if somebody thinks they're going to deliver really bad cattle, the negatives will still be there. Yeah. So it doesn't work. It still functions the same. And within that, over time, again, will there be programs that maybe develop like anything does? There could be. If there's more value at the end, of course, why wouldn't we bring it back into the plant? And then again, the co-op will own 20% of the plant, so it's a true dividend at the end of the year.
So are you looking at that Cattlemen's Heritage having a retail label?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the end goal is create a brand. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the last 3 years. We're 3 years into due diligence of this plant. That's why we're so confident in where we are today. What we've discovered is the cattle industry has done the worst job ever of telling its story of its greatest asset, and that's the farmers and ranchers and producers. We have all these amazing men and women working every day in this industry. We don't tell their story.
Right.
You know, so we're going to tell the story. Our marketing is going to be, you know, look at these family farmers, look at the ranchers, look at what they do every day. When they don't do a good job, they lose farms. They lose their livelihood. So you better believe if anything in the world of doing the best quality for what you're putting on your kitchen table, it comes out of our farmers and ranchers.
How are you going to compete with the big four?
So there's a couple ways. We have done 3 years of due diligence to figure out why plants don't work when they don't work. What causes a failure, right? Undercapitalized, we have the capital. Bad location, that I cannot overstate having a bad location. We're outside of Council Bluffs, there's 1 million people right outside that door. So we have plenty of work. The other thing we look at is, how do you compete? That's the question, right? How do you compete? Well, the co-op will be a supply of cattle. That's a bunch of producers that have signed up to deliver cattle because they want to share in the upside profits. So on the front side, you can't outbid the cattle. Those cattle are already committed. They're coming in, and they're committed because they're going to get rewarded better. Mm-hmm. So we know we'll have the cattle supply coming into the plant. Then selling the beef, what we found over the last 3 years is, as frustrated as we get as producers that we can only really sell to a handful of companies, on the retail side, there's a lot of frustration on that end too, that they only get to buy from a couple of companies. So we've been contacted by over 80 companies to buy beef today.
But at this point, you haven't gone into partnership with any prospective customers.
We haven't yet, but we're finalizing some of that. We will have a major partner on offer.
I think you need to.
And we will. We're working through that. So what we wanted to make sure is, A, do we have the capital to build? Can we build the right plant, a highly efficient plant? Are we in the right location? Once we cleared all those hurdles, that's a big part of what a retailer, an end user wants to know too.
Sure.
Do you guys have all your ducks in a row so when we're ready to buy meat? So before we break ground, we'll have a major partner signed up to buy the product. Another way that we've done that we feel is really important is, these old plants, they're old, they're tired, they're inefficient. They started by, you know, processing 2,000 head a day, they're doing 5,000 head a day.
Right.
And, you know, there's plants in this country that, you know, if you built them today, might have 2 forklifts and they got 36 running around that plant, things like that. The way we've designed it with new technology, proven technology, our technology came out of Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. And the reason we're doing that is they hit their labor issues 20 years before we did. So in a world where labor's tight, especially in this industry, you got to be as efficient as you can. We will process 2,000 head a day. A typical plant takes 1,200 employees to do that. We'll have 800.
Wow.
400 less employees, that translates to $25 million a year in savings to the plant, which transfers $50 a head cheaper production cost. So our plant will operate at a cheaper per head production cost than any plant in the system. Wow. And that's where you get the margin. So when you start thinking about how they're going to squeeze you out, well, they'd have to start losing $100 a head where we start breaking even. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of this that we looked at. Again, it's not that complicated to say, I'm going to go build a plant and then just go throw one up somewhere. What's complicated is to be successful.
Right. And I assume you've got your team pretty well set, because you've got to have people that have experience in this kind of stuff, because it's a tough business.
Yeah, we get asked that a lot, and that's a really important question. And I make sure everybody knows today, I'm the head of the company. I will not be running a plant. That is not my expertise. I've never claimed to be that guy. But what we will do is, the beauty of what's happening in the system is, because there's just a few companies that really have the top guys out there, mm-hmm. A lot of people retire 56 to 60 out of that world, and there's a lot of people,
done yet.
They're not even close to done. Right. There is so much talent in this space that's there to available. We've identified it. We've hired advisors from day one. So I have an advisor that his entire job is just to identify that talent and make sure that when we open our doors, we have the right talent in place. Because there's another way. If you want to fail, just don't put the team together. You know, try and save money on your management team. That's a great way to fail.
So, you know, we're looking for some new co-op members. And how much risk do you think there is involved in this?
What we've done is we went 2.5 years and we talked to producers and got all their point of views and heard every comment we could talk about. And at the end of the day, we developed this program we're in today. And this is the final program we're going out. So what it is, there's various stages of the co-op membership. You are rewarded to get in early. The first round, there's 5 rounds. The first round is $125 a unit. It goes up $25 every round. It's split pretty evenly through the rounds. So That's not a huge investment in the cattle world today.
No, that's especially the prices we're at now.
The way it is today. How it works is right now it's $25 down. So if you want to buy a unit today, it's $25 down. Okay. That holds your spot. Then we're going to come out in end of the year, right at the end of the year with the final, here's your final agreement, sign up. If you decide at that point in time, you know what, something's changed, I don't want in on this, we'll refund $15. We got to keep 10 because we spent 10 to put the system together. So all you're really putting at risk today is 10 bucks. 10 bucks a unit. And if you don't like it at the end, your 15 comes home. If you do like it at the end, before we break ground, roughly 30 days before we break ground, the balance of it will be owed. We made it as simple as we could. To be honest, when we first started this, I was hoping to have the producers own 60, 70% of this. Mm-hmm. We found there's not a lot of appetite for that because then you're talking $500, $600, $700 a unit. Mm-hmm. I understand that. That's a lot of money.
Well, it sounds to me like you're not really looking at this co-op to give the bulk of your capital to build this plant.
Absolutely not.
You're ready to build the plant. You're just giving folks opportunity to get into the supply of the cattle.
The plant's going to get built no matter what, because what we've done in 2.5 years is we've found the debt, we found the equity, we're working on all these pieces of the pie. We've got the MPAP award from the USDA, which is the largest, the $25 million you can get from that to build more packing industry, right? So we've been working on all these pieces. At the end of the day, the $100 million, roughly, if you sell 520,000 units, that's come from producers, but that's a $500 million plant. So that's where you get your 20% ownership, give or take. It's a true equity play. Mm-hmm. And for us, that's the passion of it. The producers need to get involved so we have the final say in the outcome also. Anybody that's in the cattle industry should be in this. And I tell bankers, I'm talking to a lot of bankers, there's not a cattle feeder that I know that shouldn't take this opportunity. When you think about what it costs, if you return $25 a head just on, once a year, it gets one space, but that's 5 years, your initial investment's back just off of that, and then you've risked nothing. Right. It's a low-risk maneuver that opens up a top end. So we did a lot of data mining to find out how the math works. In the last decade, if you just take an average of how the industry has worked in the past, box beef versus what an average would be is about 61.3% of the box beef cutout is where the industry has averaged in the past. In fact, from 04 to 13, that was exactly what it averaged, 61.3. If you take that same number, extend it to today for the last 10 years, you'll find between what we sold our cattle for and what the packer had at 61.3, there's $206 on every animal of a margin that we didn't participate in. So I've heard a big pushback I've had is, well, if you're going to give the producer all the money, the pack goes broke. Well, I'm here to tell you, the numbers don't lie. You can do the data mining yourself and figure it out. There's $206 on every head we sold in the last decade on average that we didn't participate in that margin. I'm not saying it's all ours as producers. I'm just saying there's a buffer there that certainly there's a middle ground we should all partake in.
Right.
We've been told our whole lives, you do it our way or you don't get paid at all. Now we're sitting here saying, if you do it, if we create more value, we're going to pay you for it.
Well, Chad, thanks for all the information here about Legacy Beef Co-op and Cattlemen's Heritage. If folks are interested in making an investment or finding out more about this, where should they go?
Best place to go would be go to legacybeefcoop.com or cattlemansheritage.com. Either one will give you a link to go here to get the information.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the information today and enjoyed the visit.
Thank you.